Remember that video I made a few months ago about Hello Neighbor? If you don't, let me give you a quick refresher. I basically went over several fan games that attempted to recreate lost versions of the game. While these games weren't finished products of Hello Neighbor, they weren't really meant to be. They were simply capturing Hello Neighbor history, the few versions of the game that were never publicly available. I went through recreations of every lost build of the game, excluding the early prototype, which this commenter pointed out. My exclusion of this build was intentional, as to be honest, I didn't think it was worth mentioning since it was just an early version of another lost build that I did show off in the video. Someone did make a game of it though, so if you want to check it out, there's a link in the description. It's actually really accurate, and I kind of regret not including it in my original video. Technically, I also forgot to mention Early Alpha 1 and Early Alpha 2, but come on, look at these changes. Anyway, I'm sure the majority of people who saw the game slowly slip further and further away from what it was originally meant to be would love to go into a reality where the game stuck close to its original concept. Some would say an alternative reality. Yeah, this video is about Hello Neighbor alternative reality. You know, alternative reality was the game that originally led to my first Hello Neighbor video. I was originally going to make a video solely on Hello Neighbor alternative reality back a few months ago, but I kept going deeper and deeper into the Hello Neighbor rabbit hole, leading me to finding many games and mods I wanted to bring attention to, all while leaving alternative reality on the back burner for a while. Recently, I noticed that the creator of this game, NateEMG, commented on that first video, and if you noticed, he was the source for a lot of the pre-release footage. Seeing him comment and having a brief conversation with him reminded me of the old script that I had, but instead of completing it, I decided to scrap it and start from the beginning. Hello Neighbor Alternative Reality has had a lot of updates since then anyway, so my script was fairly outdated. To put it simply, this game has a lot more than what would fit into a 5 or so minute segment in a video featuring 3 other games. Hello Neighbor Alternative Reality is a game split up into acts, not unlike the actual Hello Neighbor, so for the sake of organization, let's tackle each act one by one. Before that though, I'll quickly mention that this game contains a tutorial level, which is always a welcome addition. I just wanted to point out that it exists. That's really all I have to say. So, let's move on to Act 1. Act 1 starts similarly to Act 1 in the original game. You're just living your life, sleeping on your couch, when you're awoken to the sounds of screaming coming from your neighbor's house. You decide to head over and investigate, and then you're thrown in. You don't know what's going on, you just know you need to head in and investigate. Much like the original Hello Neighbor, this game is a puzzle game. But unlike Hello Neighbor, the puzzles aren't platforming and parkour. They're more like the puzzles that were in Alpha 1 and 2. Simple and easy to understand. The main difference between this game and Hello Neighbor is that this game focuses heavily on stealth and avoiding getting caught, which if you remember was a big part of the game during what I like to refer to as the early alphas, before the game started changing for the worse. In the full game, if you get caught, it basically doesn't matter. Nothing resets besides your position and the neighbor's position. Oh, and the time changes, because that totally matters. In Alpha 1, if you get caught, you lose all your items and everything resets in its position, save for any items placed in your house and any progress made on puzzles. This game takes it a step further. If you get caught, everything resets. Your progress on puzzles, your items, even your own furniture. Meaning, don't get fucking caught. In this game, the neighbor isn't just an annoyance, but an actual threat you need to avoid at all costs. It's not too difficult to avoid getting caught in this act since the house is small and it's pretty easy to escape, although sometimes you might get cornered. Luckily, getting caught isn't too bad since this act is fairly short. The neighbor's AI itself is pretty good, especially when compared to the original game's AI. Even still, I did get the neighbor stuck a few times. Once he got stuck jumping in place trying to hop this fence, which he eventually got out of when I walked away, so it wasn't too big of a deal. Hey, hold up, why do I have my flashlight here? I got hit by a car and died, so shouldn't my items reset? While editing, I realized I kinda forgot to mention something. You see, you can get hit by cars in this game. I guess I forgot to mention this because getting hit by cars doesn't count as getting caught by the neighbor. So getting hit by a car is just basically a quick shortcut back to your house. It doesn't actually matter. So yeah, just wanted to mention that. The other time I managed to get him stuck because I rang the doorbell. I guess he just got anxious and couldn't bring himself to potentially talk to somebody. Generally, the AI is pretty solid and doesn't tend to get stuck too often. But more on the AI later. Like I said, Act 1 is fairly short. All you need is a hammer and a key. Standard stuff. You just solve a few puzzles, avoid getting caught, and bam, basement time. Once you get the hammer, you head up to the hole in the roof, remove this pathetic excuse of a patch, and drop down. This room also happens to be a shrine for the guest from Hello Guest, or as it's now called, Hello Neighbor 2. Seems random for me to mention now, but trust me, it'll be important later. The basement level is pretty straightforward and linear. You grab a hammer, walk past your burning turned over vehicle with a giant statue of the guest overlooking it, remove some boards, grab a key, and you're into the chase scene from the end of Act 1. The chase even ends the same way. You need 3 keys to open a door, which you unfortunately don't have. Unless you do. The basement section has 2 endings. In both, the same thing happens, but if you find all 3 keys, you get to open the door and see the neighbor's son before he catches you. Unless you're like me and unlock the door, but still get caught anyway. Next up is a quick puzzle with some parkour and one of the only 2 instances of box stacking in the entire game. I'm gonna be honest, maybe it's just because I'm used to the wonky physics of Hello Neighbor, but box stacking here just feels wrong. Like, I'm 99% sure it's what you're supposed to do, and even though the physics are way better, it just feels like the boxes are gonna go flying if I jump or crouch. It's hard to showcase through video, but when you play the game, you'll know what I'm talking about. Platforming is very rare in this game though, and it isn't anything special, but it at least feels way more consistent than Hello Neighbor. After you escape the basement, you're greeted with a broken window and cops with some Unreal Engine flashing rectangles on top of their cars. What does this mean in the story? Did someone kidnap the neighbor? Or perhaps he called the cops on us for breaking and entering? We'll talk about that later. For now, let's talk about Act 2. Act 2 starts off the same way as Act 3 in the final game, or I guess the same way as Alpha 1, whichever you prefer. We're moving into a new house, presumably to get away from our scary neighbor. The house across the street from ours is noticeably out of place. I wonder where the bad guy lives. After we unlock the door to our new house, we're too feeble and weak from our lack of physical activity to strongman the boards. After being embarrassed by our own performance, we turn around to sleep in the car for the night when we see a mysterious figure peeking out from behind a tree. We sigh to ourselves, before remembering we still have the hammer from the neighbor's house and had it stashed in our trunk. You'd think a hammer is a weird thing to steal, but our guy just really needed a hammer. We remove the boards from the door and head inside, only to start tweaking and seeing the guest running towards us and getting run down by a drunk driver. After witnessing a hit and run in our new neighborhood, we start becoming nauseated, but luckily our narcolepsy kicks in. We wake up to the sounds of screams yet again, noticing the house from us is suddenly refurbished and is now the home of our previous neighbor. Then the Hello Neighbor gameplay commences yet again. It's the Alpha 1 house, but this time it contains more than just 2 floors. Now the elevator goes all the way up to the 4th floor, and the 3rd floor is no longer blocked off to the player or the neighbor. To say this act is a lot harder is an understatement. Act 1 was child's play. Act 2 is when the challenge of only having 1 life really becomes difficult. Not only are the puzzles way more complicated, but now there's more of them. The neighbor is way more of a threat given how much harder it is to determine where he is. Distractions play a big role in this act, much like they did in the early stages of Hello Neighbor. Hell, in the final game he just ignores them altogether. But here they're useful. The neighbor sadly still can't hear items being thrown, another feature only in the pre-alpha. But he can hear alarms, windows being broken, the TV, and even your footsteps. Plus, the new stereo system can be used to distract him as well. The radio would work too, but the radio doesn't actually appear in this game. Neither do trash can lids, which is a fucking strange thing to not include in the game. I mean, to be fair, it's also strange I'd point it out and even remotely care about them not being included. I mean, on a list of things excluded from a Hello Neighbor game, trash can lids should not be a top priority for me. Distractions aren't necessary to beat Act 2. You can do the whole thing as stealth, which is the way I prefer to play it. Otherwise, distractions are a good way to lead him away from you and send him into hunt mode for a little bit. Act 2's main puzzle is based around the main puzzle from Act 1, being flipping the paintings and finding the 3 lamps. But since the house is bigger, you'd imagine it'd be a lot harder to complete these puzzles, and you'd be 100% correct. For instance, in order to get the red lamp, you need to turn on the train by finding and activating 5 generators, several of which you need to find other items to access, meaning you have to run around all 4 floors of the house to find the items that you need, which granted, they aren't that hard to find. But you're not just finding items here, you're also avoiding an enemy that could reset your progress if he touches you, just like my therapist. Unlike Alpha 1, the neighbor is not able to use the elevator, which makes the entire 4th floor inaccessible to him, unless you remove the boards on the train tracks. Although the only way to do this is with the hammer, as the train itself is non-functional. The neighbor not being able to access the 4th floor sounds like a detriment to him, but in practice it's really not that bad. A lot of the items you need are on the 4th floor and above, but most of said items need to be used on one of the bottom 3 floors, meaning the neighbor is still a huge threat. But the neighbor isn't your only obstacle. Sleeping in your bed progresses the daylight cycle in a pattern, similar to getting caught in the full game. So you might think you'll sleep till day and go in when you can see clearly, but it's not so straightforward. If you try to sleep till daytime, you'll have a good few minutes until a thunderstorm starts. Yes, this game has a weather cycle. When it's raining, the house is significantly darker and harder to navigate. The house lights are very dim and don't really help with visibility, leaving some of the hallways pitch black. Unlike you, the neighbor has perfect vision in the dark, meaning he'll most likely see you before you see him. Flashlights are your best friend now. All these obstacles make Act 2 what I like to call pretty fucking hard. Even if you know what you're doing, it could still take you upwards of an hour to beat, which is probably why as of now there's no speedruns of Act 2. So in honor of this, I will record my Odin speedrun and take my crown rightfully as the world record holder. Okay. I know where stuff is somewhat, but I'm not, like I haven't really practiced, like, a route or anything. I'm just kind of going. Distractions might actually be useful here. Hello Neighbor expert right here. I'm gonna try to go for sub 10. I don't know if that's gonna happen, but... No! Game, no! Okay. Nope, that's the wrong thing. Hello? I thought it was in the 4th. What the fuck? That's not gonna help. Fuck, where am I going? I don't remember. I'm not even scared of getting, like... I'm not even scared of the game. I'm scared of fucking getting caught and losing my progress. Oh, there it is. Well, no, I'm not turning the power back on then. No! Uh-oh. Oh, that was so close. Hello? Game? Okay. I don't know how I didn't get caught there. Okay. Now I need the red key off of him. Yeah, I know this. Do I care? Nope. Dog, my time. Okay, I don't know where he's at. Hello? I'm counting that. As the only person to have attempted the speedrun, my rules are as follows. Start the timer as soon as you load in, and end the timer as soon as you unlock the basement door. Please upload your attempts to beat my time, as I imagine it wouldn't be too difficult. The speedrun was pretty fun though, so I recommend you give it a try. Finally, after all is said and done, and you finally unlock the basement door, the neighbor rushes you just like an Alpha 1. But instead of burying you alive, this time he just throws you out onto the street. A more reasonable response in my opinion. After coming to, you decide just to nope the fuck out. During your drive, we start falling asleep at the wheel and nearly run over the guest, causing us to swerve off the road and crash into a tree, beginning the final act of the game. We wake up in the middle of a path and are greeted by a train. We get in and start it. This is the only time you get to ride the train since it's non-functional in Act 2. During said ride, we experience constant flashes of the guest and the neighbor, as well as flashes of significant events, such as the basement door and a hospital bed, immediately followed by a flash of our car with a telephone pole on top of it and in flames. The train ride ends with a giant neighbor sleeping in a chair. The only thing left for us to do is ascend up the ladder. We go up and see a chalkboard reading, "What you're seeing is a lie." The giant neighbor wakes up shortly after, and we get chloroformed by the guest. After some quick credits, we wake up in a hospital bed and see a poster with our simming neighbor. And that's all the gameplay out of the way. Before we move on to the next section, I should address something. The music you've been hearing this entire video was taken from the soundtrack of Hello Neighbor Alternative Reality, which was composed entirely by NateEMG himself, which is not something you'd expect out of a Hello Neighbor fan game of all things. The soundtrack is actually really good, and I'll leave a link to it in the description if you want to give it a listen. The song that plays during the credits is especially amazing. Maybe I'm just nostalgic towards the old builds of Hello Neighbor, but there's something special about hearing this song play after playing through the entire game for the first time. Overall, the music in this game is just amazing, and Nate really did an amazing job at giving this game life. Okay, now we can move on. Speaking of which, next up is my personal favorite section to talk about. The neighbor himself. The AI in this game is exactly what you'd expect from an overhauled version of the pre-alpha. The AI has its traditional modes: idle, hunt, and attack. Unlike in the early alphas, the neighbor does lose interest after a short period of time in hunt mode. He'll run around looking for you for a bit before going back into idle. You can tell whether he's in idle or hunt by listening to the ambience. He tends to check spots you hide in the most, and sets up traps around the paths you tend to take the most often. Offline mode is absent here because offline mode only activates when you get caught and he's setting up traps. But since if you get caught the game resets, obviously he wouldn't be able to do that. So he sets up traps in real time just like Alpha 2 and beyond. He also doesn't throw stuff at you in this version either. The only way he fights other than chasing you is with swear words.
Come here, you big fuck! Fuck! Shit! Fucking cunt!
The old chase animation from the prototype is back too. Although I do kind of wish it acted the same way as it does in the prototype recreation from my last video. When he's far away from you, he just runs like normal. But as he gets closer to you, he reaches his arms out to grab you. It's a small detail, but what can I say? I'm a details guy. The chases start similarly to Alpha 2 and beyond, with a gasp. Then the music starts, but only after you look in the neighbor's direction. So sometimes if you don't hear the gasp, it can be pretty startling to hear the music kick in suddenly. Personally, I'm not a big fan of the gasp, because in my opinion it kind of kills a little bit of the unexpected factor. What made the pre-alpha terrifying was when the music would unexpectedly kick in, warning you to run for your life. The chase music is the same as the ones from Alpha 1. I personally think it would be better with only the music from the pre-alpha because it gets me to jump the most and I think it's the most scary. As I mentioned before, the ambience changes depending on if he's in hunt or idle, which is nice. But damn, I really missed the nearby track from the pre-alpha. If you couldn't tell, the pre-alpha was my favorite build of Hello Neighbor. Honestly, if they made the pre-alpha into a full game, I'd be able to die tomorrow because my life would be complete. There's 3 ambient tracks in the pre-alpha. One for when you're in the house. One for when you're near him and he's in idle mode. And one for when you're near him in hunt mode. As you can tell, the dynamic ambience creates a creepy atmosphere, as opposed to the on-off switch in alternative reality. Basically, the ambience is tied to the neighbor's AI state, unlike your position as in the pre-alpha. Speaking of which, the only aforementioned track that still plays in alternative reality is the inside house ambience. The near and nearby tracks were cut entirely, which is honestly a shame, as I believe the ambience in the pre-alpha was damn near perfect. I made a simulation of what this game would sound like with the pre-alpha soundtrack, so please enjoy this recreation.
Now he's going to move like right along to McGregor. That's so like, you know.
Good to see you, engineers. Look great. Where are you stationed? I haven't gotten around to this grass for that one in 4 months.
Personally, I'd love to see the system added back in, but if it wasn't, I'd understand. Alright, I've talked about hunt mode and attack mode enough, but what about idle mode? Well, he does his traditional idle tasks, plus some that went unused in the final game. Honestly, I'd give you a full list of all the neighbor's idle tasks in this game, but sadly I can't. Unlike the full game in the pre-alpha, there isn't a way for me to watch the neighbor constantly without being noticed. Oh wait, there is. So, shortly after I wrote this part of the script, I went on a short adventure to find out if there was any way to enable the console. I joined NateEMG's Discord server and was thinking about messaging him when I decided to do a quick search to see if anyone had mentioned the console. And to my surprise, I discovered the Universal Unreal Unblocker. Quick download, running the program, the console's unlocked, allowing me to see everything the neighbor does. So, what does he do? Pretty much everything he does in the pre-alpha and alpha 1. The only new idle tasks he has are admiring his house and sitting on his steps, taken from the full game, making toast, eating said toast, and listening to some sick tunes. Also, he once again has been given the ability to take a piss, much like Alpha 2. While we're on the topic, I don't understand why this task was removed from the final game. The neighbor basically lost all of his unique activities in Alpha 2 and was given 2 new ones as replacement, only for both to be axed in the full game, with the milk not even making it past Alpha 2. Luckily, in this game, the neighbor was given back all of his old idle tasks from the pre-alpha and Alpha 1, plus the few new ones I mentioned. The more mundane tasks the neighbor has, the better. So, I think I've covered the AI extensively. Next up is the story, the juicy part, I guess. I'm not going to spend too much time on this part because this video is more about the gameplay and mechanics than anything, but I should mention that there is a new story to this game. So, spoiler alert. But if you watch this far, you probably don't care about that since I basically spoiled the entire game thus far. The story in this game is complicated, to say the least. I could make a whole separate video talking about the story, and truthfully, there isn't really one definitive story. A lot of the story, much like Hello Neighbor, is theory crafting. It kind of has the original Hello Neighbor confusing story, but I personally find Hello Neighbor Alternative Reality's story way more enjoyable than Hello Neighbor's. Hello Neighbor's story isn't even really that bad, it's just the way they tell it. They make it feel way more deep than it actually is. The whole story could have been told without these cryptic flashback sequences. Alternative Reality takes a better stance. The story isn't fully revealed, and a lot of the story is able to be interpreted in many different ways. But I'll go over what I think is the most likely theory. Basically, Act 1 is all reality. It's your reality, the one you belong in. The guest statues are a sign. Every statue leads you to an alternate reality. The first statue you see is in the room housing the key to enter the basement, which, once you enter, you're already in another reality. The next statue you see is standing above the flaming wreckage of your car, a sign of what will happen in the future. The last statue you see in Act 1 is peeking out from behind a corner in the last basement section. Once you turn on all 4 generators, the gate will open, allowing you to go down the hallway the guest statue is peeking out from. Once you do, you end up in a snowy forest with no way back. The door in the middle of the snow attached to nothing reminds me of that scene from Monsters, Inc. As silly as that sounds, that movie featured doors that allowed the monsters to travel to a different reality, just like what happened to us. The house here is even in the art style of Hello Neighbor 2, showing us even further that it is not of our reality. It's possible that this is the reality the guest is from. Once we escape the basement, we become the guest's new toy. Once we move into our new house to escape the past, we start seeing the guest. We pass out and wake up in another alternative reality. No matter where the protagonist moves to, the guest will always find a reality where the neighbor lives across the street, meaning we'll never be able to escape our trauma. It's possible the neighbor isn't even himself, going off of him struggling during the train ride. To me, it looks like he's struggling to take back control of himself. The reason we wake up in the neighbor's house is because the guest brought us there. Perhaps the basement was the exit to our hell. If the neighbor didn't prevent us from going in, we might have been able to escape. We flee, and the guest prevents us from doing so, causing us to crash and fall into a coma. We travel through our thoughts, experiencing our trauma yet again. The giant neighbor is how we see the neighbor. This big, bad, scary guy who has power over us. When the guest chloroforms us, he's telling us that he is the one we should be afraid of. It's him saying that the neighbor wasn't the bad guy at all. It was him the whole time. Once we wake up and see the missing poster, it's a sign telling us the guest has taken the neighbor out of our reality, possibly sending him through his own personal hell the same way he did with us, showing how powerful he truly is. So, with that being said, I don't think this is 100% correct. There's so much that could be interpreted in so many different ways. It's possible that the name of the game could be taken as meta, and every single theory could be correct in their own alternate reality. There's no way to truly tell. Hell, I could be dead wrong, but who knows? Only Nate himself does. All we can do is theorize, just like we did back in the early days of Hello Neighbor. So, that's Hello Neighbor Alternative Reality. It's a great game that I highly recommend you check out for yourself. It's way better than Hello Neighbor and doesn't cost $30. NateEMG recently announced he's making a sequel called Hello Neighbor 2 Alternative Reality. It's not going to be a continuation of this game, but rather its own world and story. Funnily enough, it's going to be set in its own alternative reality. I'm going to be honest, I probably won't make a video essay on it like this though, because my knowledge of Hello Neighbor 2 is extremely limited. I never really cared for the Hello Neighbor series after the first game, but I'm sure it'll be an amazing game nonetheless. I'll probably still check it out though, just to see if it lives up to the hype. I can honestly say that this is one of the best Hello Neighbor fan games to ever exist. It captures the feel of OG Hello Neighbor perfectly. There's only one game that I would say even comes close, but I'll save that for next time. I hope you all enjoyed this video, and I'll be sure to see you guys next time. Be sure to join me for when I talk about the only game that rivals this one, that of course being Hello Neighbor Hidden Spirits.